What is up? Welcome to episode 6 of Etsy Jam. In this episode, Richie and I talk about some of the dangers of doing business online. We share a couple of tools with you that we use to keep ourselves safe and explain how they can help you too. What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 6 of Etsy Jam. In this episode, Richie and I are going to talk about a couple of tools to help keep you guys safe online. This is something that is pretty near and dear to our heart. And we follow security, and we try to practice as good security as we can in our business transactions that we do online, and our personal things, and our finances, all that kind of stuff. We try to stay on top of it as well as we can. And so we want to share a few tools with you guys that can help keep you guys safe as well. So to start off with, there's a rising trend in malware and spyware and viruses. I mean, we hear about these things all the time. It's not slowing down. More and more of these things get created every single day. People are trying to get a leg up. They're trying to take advantage of people out there that they can. Fortunately, there's tools that help us prevent these sorts of things. And, spyware and malware, they don't really scare me as much. I have antivirus on my computer that I use, and it can pretty much stay on top of that stuff and keep it clear for the most part. But the thing that really has concerned me lately is ransomware. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but it's a growing trend over the last year or two. Crypto Wall is a good example, I think, of one of the first ones that showed up. And it's really wreaking havoc out there. And there's a lot of copycat ones that have showed up since then. So what ransomware is it's software that gets onto your computer and encrypts all of your files, right? Which sounds like a good thing. It's good to have your files encrypted and safe, except that the ransomware encrypts them in a way that you can't access them anymore. And then they charge you money, usually a Bitcoin or fractions of a Bitcoin, which would translate to about $300 to $800 US, depending on the different variety of ransomware that you get. They want you to pay this money through, usually through Bitcoin, because it's harder to track. And then once they've received your funds, they promise to give you a key that will unlock your files, and you'll gain back access to all your, personal pictures and financial documents, spreadsheets, all your work, everything that you have on your computer. They promise to give you that back. Well, the problem I have with this is that I don't really feel comfortable that the hackers have spent a whole lot of time developing the part of the software that gives you your files back, right? Like, they're going to be focusing on the time on the part of the software that is encrypting your files, and probably the part that's collecting your money also.
Question there.
Yeah.
So when they encrypt your files and then take your money,
Yeah.
there's no real guarantee they haven't kept a copy of these things for later, right?
That's a good point. I mean, it would be really hard to tell if they had offloaded your files to a server that they kind of have control over. So it hasn't been really publicized that this has been going on. But again, I don't think that the people who have been hit by this would necessarily even know if that's happening, because it would happen in the background and it would be kind of hard to pick up on unless you're like a company or something like that has things in place to kind of monitor all that exfiltration of data and all that kind of stuff.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, I mean, that's a concern also, right? Like, you wouldn't want to have someone having access to any of your files on their end either.
No, you certainly don't.
So ransomware sounds nasty, right? I would agree. And we thinking of ways, how do we prevent this? So in order to understand how to prevent it, it helps to understand how people get infected by it. How does it get onto our computers in the first place? Well, one of the main ways that they're able to do this is through advertising and exploits in the Flash player that 90% of everyone has installed on their computer. Because if you don't have Flash, much of the internet is still unavailable to you. Pretty much every restaurant website out there that I've seen, their menu and all of their stuff is still built in Flash, because that was cool, back in the day, to have all your stuff built out that way. And without it, there's a whole bunch of things you can't access. Fortunately, we're moving away from that. But in the meantime, Flash is a great attack vector because there's vulnerabilities found in Flash like every single day. It's all the time, super frequently. And what these people will do that are trying to get ransomware onto your machines is they will take out ads with ad networks, which will then plaster their ads all over the place. And these ads are actually serving up malicious content. Okay, so this is something, if it's an exploit in Flash, it doesn't even necessarily require you to have to click on it. It could just, you go to this website and boom, they've exploited Flash, and now you're in trouble. You've got this malicious code running on your machine.
Question.
Yeah.
Do these ads look dangerous?
they don't necessarily even look dangerous, right? Like if they were putting dangerous ads out there, that's a good point, Richie. People would be privy to that kind of right away. These things would show up and they'd be like, that doesn't even look legit. So these things could look like anything.
So it's not going to be like a skull and crossbones or something like that.
Poison symbol, no, nothing like that. Right?
Okay.
It's probably, I don't even know what it'd be ad for a couple people in a bathtub, like overlooking like a nice vista or something.
Oh, like a vacation or like maybe a food blog.
Like a bathtub vacation, yeah.
Yeah. See, that looks enticing. I would not think that they're going to steal all my files if I click that.
I wouldn't either.
No.
So,
I'd be like, where is this place? This sounds fantastic.
So that's a good point, right? And you think too, not only the kind of ads that people are serving up, but the places they're being served up. You don't need to be kind of perusing the underbelly of the internet. You don't have to be on these no-name websites. It was in last September that Yahoo actually found out that they were serving up malicious ads. And in a crazy turn of events, they had to put a bunch of notices out to people that say, hey, if you're visiting yahoo.com and you see something that says upgrade your Flash player, like don't do it, right? This is Yahoo. This is like a main website that's having this issue, and that's crazy, right? Like at this point, these aren't sites that you can just avoid, right? Like I'm going to steer away from all these like shady websites that might have shady ads set up and only visit the reputable ones, because well, now they're exposed to this issue too, right? This is great for people that are trying to get their ransomware, their other malware out there to access your information, to encrypt your information, and ultimately get money back from you. So I don't know about you, but I don't really want to be spending $300 to $800 to get my files back that should have been mine in the first place. So what can we do? We know they're coming through ads. Well, this is the first tool we're going to recommend, and this is Adblock Plus. This is an ad blocker that you can install no matter what browser you're using on your computer. It works in Firefox, Chrome. We have a video on our blog too, I should mention, that we put together the steps. If you guys want to follow along and see how this works, how you install this, you can go out there and check it out. It's marmalead.com/blog, and you'll find that post out there, and it'll have like the walkthrough steps of how you would set one of these things up. We didn't really want to cover it in the podcast because it's kind of
screenshots help. Yeah.
And the screenshots help, right? So that's the first one is Adblock Plus. It's really simple to install. And it'll do a good job protecting you and preventing those ads from showing up and exposing yourself to any kinds of problems that are out there. Right?
Not only is it going to protect you, but actually once you first turn on an ad blocker, it is amazing how much more space your browser has for the content you're actually looking for.
Yep.
You're like, whoa, these ads have been taking up a ton of the space in my window. And obviously screen real estate is pretty precious and all that.
Absolutely.
So, and then when you turn it back on or like you disable it for any sort of reason, it's like, oh my gosh, wow, there are a lot of ads. Yeah. Where the heck do these come from?
Yeah, it's kind of
I always find that pretty surprising myself. Yeah.
And not only screen real estate, but we're also talking bandwidth here too. So if you're
good point.
Using an ad blocker, they prevent your computer from even retrieving these ads. So they never even touch your machine. Your browser won't even go and request these things to pull down the data. So you're saving yourself a lot on bandwidth there too, which on desktop might not be as important, but in the mobile space, that's a much bigger deal, right? Because we're all paying for the bandwidth that we're using on our mobile devices. And along those lines...
Actually, I want to make a point about the desktop version also. So even though the bandwidth might not matter to you as much, before ad blocker, or before using those, and when I'm not using those, which 99% of the time I am, when a website's loading and it's taking a while, I'll look in that bottom left and see what it's actually doing. And it tends to be waiting not for the website I'm actually trying to visit, but one of these third-party networks, such as ads. And for some reason, instead of having those like further down the page and loading my content first, oh no, those are right up top. They want to make sure those ads load. Yep. But the ad blockers make sure that doesn't happen.
Yep.
Now I think you want me to talk about mobile ad blocking.
Yep.
Also very useful. Because actually you have a much smaller screen on your phone and it's so much easier to accidentally click ads. It's really terrible. But there's solutions. So Android, I don't have an Android, but I know they have quite a few options for ad blockers on that platform because they have a little bit more access to the operating system in there. And by a little bit, I mean a lot.
Which is a double-edged sword, but...
But another podcast. Maybe episode 60.
Maybe.
But iPhone, the iOS, if you're on an iPad, any of that, you do have some options. You have to be using Safari, which is fine, because actually I find that it loads up pages a lot faster than the other ones anyway, which makes sense because it's the one that Apple put on there and has the most access to. But there is a specific ad blocker that I like using on Apple devices, which is called Purify, Purify, Purify. And it is pretty darn good. And again, you'll be amazed at how much extra screen real estate, and then you won't accidentally hit all these ads and whatnot, because that's really unfortunate when you're scrolling through on your mobile phone and you accidentally hit an ad and you were just trying to go up.
Dude, right? I hate that. I hate when the page hasn't loaded yet and I see something and I go to click it and then ad and I'm like, oh.
Well, because then it opens another window and like all this crap and you're like, what is going on here? This is not what I was looking for.
Yeah.
You go back, it reloads the page, it's in a different spot, like it's a nightmare. So get Purify. I paid for it. I don't remember how much it cost. Might have even been like $2 or $3.99. I'm not sure. It's been a while. I've been using it for a long time. Never looked back. Check out some other options, but the Purify is made by the same people that make something called uBlock. I think it's uBlock Origin specifically. So many of these ad blockers have like almost like an original and then like a spin-off, or they call it like a fork. But yeah, they're good. Try them out. Adblock Plus, Purify for iOS, and try different things out for Android. But definitely worth doing.
Absolutely. So that's tool number one. The next tool we want to share with you guys is a tool called LastPass. And maybe some of you have heard of this, maybe some of you haven't. Richie and I have been using this for a long time.
I love LastPass.
It's a fantastic product. Comes in immensely helpful. Well, first of all, what does it do? It allows us to save all of our passwords in one very safe place online and be able to access those from multiple different devices. So my desktop, my laptop, my phone, my iPad, whatever. All those things I can access my passwords from. Now, if you're anything like me, when you first are hearing about this and I'm telling you about this, you're thinking, well, this sounds horrible, right? Like, why would I want to take all my passwords and hand them over to some website who's going to hang on to them for me, and then I use one password to log in and get them all back? Like, this seems terrible. Anybody could compromise that one site, and now all of a sudden, like, all my accounts are out there. Like, that sounds horrible. Yes, it does. And I was very leery about this at first also. The nice thing about LastPass, and one of the reasons I would absolutely recommend it over anything else that's out there, including 1Password, is that LastPass has been very upfront and forward. It was developed by a single dude, and he was very upfront and forward with all of the security professionals in the industry to explain how he built this. What protocols was he using? What methods of encryption was he using? How does the data move around between your local machine and the server? And people that are much more proficient in security than I am were able to look at all of this information that he had provided them and say, yeah, we can give this thing the thumbs up. Like, it sounds like you built this the right way. This is the way that you would want to implement a secure password storing device on the internet. So that was good enough for me. That's fantastic, right? So I use LastPass. I put all my accounts out there. Again, it's really easy to set up.
It is easy.
You can go out, create an account. It's also in the video that we put together on the blog too. So a little bit more steps than just installing an ad blocker. But if you want to see me go through the process, and I even tie it into an Etsy account too, if you're curious how that works and how you tie it into your accounts, you can see that in that video there too. But other things that we like about LastPass, it helps us generate secure passwords. So this is a really nice feature that it has. When I'm on a page and I am creating a new account, or I'm updating a password on an existing account that I have, instead of just typing in what I want my password to be, there's a little icon that shows up and I can click that, and LastPass comes up with this nice little window that says, okay, let's generate a password. Let's do this. So I can pick how long I want that password to be. I can pick whether I want to use capital letters, lowercase letters, numbers, special characters, all kinds of stuff that allow me to build a really nice, long, secure password. And oftentimes I'll try to figure out how long of a password the site can handle, and then just kind of crank it up as large as LastPass will let me go with that for that particular site, and build out these crazy long passwords that are like a string of random characters and numbers that there's no way I could remember these on my own. But that's one of the benefits of LastPass, is it remembers all that stuff for me. So instead of having these easy to remember passwords that are like dictionary words and names and dates and all that kind of stuff that sometimes people use, I'm able to use a much longer, more secure password, because it's going to be harder for people to guess that password. That's the whole reason you want to do that.
Not just people, but machines. It's amazing how fast machines are able to crack passwords now. And when you take dictionary words, they're saying that even if you substitute numbers and special characters for letters, these machines are still able to throw those in at crazy speeds because processing speeds are getting so fast.
Yep.
So even if you're being creative and putting dictionary word, but ooh, I'm going to put a 0 instead of an O. I'm going to 3 instead of an E. I'm going to trick it. No, you didn't trick it because they know that and they've programmed it in. Mm-hmm. Also, as you pointed out, with LastPass generating these passwords and password length for different sites, have you noticed that it often tells you what the maximum length for a password is on the site when you're generating it?
I have not seen that yet, but that's awesome.
It is not very prominent. It's somewhat gray on a gray background, like a slightly different gray. But nonetheless, so when I'm sitting there and like, I normally do like 25 or so characters because a lot of sites are able to like kind of max out that. Sometimes there'll be one that's like 16 and it'll show me right there and be like, hey, no, you can't do that. But another question. So how many passwords and sites do you think you have in LastPass?
I mean, I could probably check right now, but over 100.
Over 100?
I mean, it's kind of crazy because everything I'm exposed to, even back when I was at my day job, there's lots of tools and stuff that I'd want to try out and play around with and stuff. And you have to make an account for pretty much everything anymore,
sure do.
Right? Which is fair. That's cool. I'm willing to trade my email address to somebody to be able to play around with their tool and see if I like it before I make a purchase. But I end up collecting all these accounts all over the place, right? And so LastPass, in what it does at its core, is able to really help with that. I probably have over 100 different accounts that if I weren't using LastPass, I would either be having to like write these things down or put them in some kind of document somewhere or use the same password across multiple accounts, which is terrible.
You should do that. No. That's really bad. You know how many really accounts I have in LastPass?
800.
No, close to 500.
Oh, damn.
I have close to 500 accounts. I know this because they have something called a security challenge where LastPass, the software, will actually analyze everything you keep in their vault. And it will analyze the strength of your passwords, look for duplicate passwords. So it will nick you on things like if it's like, hey, you've used this password more than once, that's not cool. And the reason it's not cool is because if one of those sites get compromised, the first thing the people that compromise that site do is they use your email address, your or username, whatever is in there with it and that password, and they go out to all of the common places where they might be able to get financial gain. Yep. So we're talking PayPal, we're talking every single bank you could possibly have, credit card, Amazon, etc.
Starbucks even, right? Because through Starbucks, if they own your account, they can use the app to purchase things like gift cards and have them mailed to them. Absolutely. So it's crazy. Any place that your credit card could be tied or your PayPal account could be tied through a website, that's a path that they could be taking to try to get some kind of financial gain from this. And that ties back into why you should not be using the same password across multiple sites. Like Richie says, that scoring system is fantastic. It goes through everything and tells you where you're at strength-wise and it finds duplicates for you. And then you can easily go in there and make sure that you're not using the same password on multiple websites, especially not across ones that maybe you don't care about so much and ones that you really care about a lot, right? You really want to be careful about those. One of the other things that's cool about LastPass is it makes it really easy to share credentials with other people. So Richie and I have accounts that we'll share back and forth. Obviously with Marmalead, we have a bunch of things that we both need to have access to. Yep. And so we're able to log into our separate LastPass accounts and share back and forth credentials with one another. And when we do this, we have two different options. We can either just share everything. Here you go, see the password, see all the info we have saved for this account. Or if we're really paranoid for some reason, we can share the account without sharing the actual password. So I could share an account with Richie that I want to give him access to, but he couldn't necessarily see the password that I'm using on that account or be able to make changes to the password for that account. He just has the ability to pre-fill it using LastPass and log in.
That's another good point as far as changing passwords. LastPass makes that really easy too. They also, in that security challenge, let you know the last time you have changed the password. And I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but they're also letting you for like Google, Facebook, Twitter. There's a lot of accounts where it'll actually go into the site. It will log you into the site and change your password for you.
I've seen that. They're collecting more. I think they're going through and they're kind of auditing the sites that people might be using the most and figuring out how they can automate the process of changing that password for that account.
Yep.
I've used it on maybe 4 or 5 different websites and it was fantastic.
Right.
I would love to see them get to a point where I can just tell LastPass, like, hey, like update my password every month or whatever. And then I don't even have to worry about it. LastPass could go and like do it behind the scenes even, right? But as long as it's done inside the app and when next time I go to log in, I have the right password, I don't care.
That's the other thing too, like the passwords we share, if one of us updates the password, right, a good practice, we don't have to worry about it, like, hey, I'm going to text you this new password.
Yeah.
Because don't do that either. Don't like text and email passwords. That's not a good idea. But that's another thing, like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
How are you going to go share those passwords?
Securely share it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you wait till next time you meet up with somebody and then like tell it to them while they type it into the
find a really busy, noisy place like a park and whisper it.
Maybe.
Seems kind of paranoid.
Meet someone on a
but
park
it would
bench.
Be secure.
I'll be the one reading the Wall Street Journal on the park bench. Right? Like take 2 laps around, just make sure you weren't followed.
I'll be the one walking like the little teacup pig.
That'll be easy to find.
So that's LastPass.
That's LastPass. LastPass is great. I pay for the premium because I absolutely think it's worth it.
Agreed. I believe premium, amongst other things, allows you to have native access on your mobile device. So this ties it in really nicely to the applications that you have on your phone too, where some of these things that I've created accounts for aren't even websites. Like Primer, for example, I don't think has a website, but I might have had to create an account to use it. I don't remember.
I think it was logging through Google.
There's other apps like that, though, that require you to log in on your mobile device. And using LastPass, you can create accounts right there on your mobile device and easily kind of pull up credentials and log in to apps on your phone that you might not necessarily be able to do online.
That's a good point. I do create a good amount of accounts from my phone. And if I didn't have LastPass, I would be stuck with making an account password that I can remember, which is not going to be secure. And then even if I can't remember, I still have to remember to go online on the desktop to do it. But from LastPass on the mobile app, I can create a secure password right there and do it all in one shot. Saves me a good amount of time and security.
The next thing that we want to talk to you about, as far as security tools online are concerned, is two-factor authentication. Now, two-factor authentication basically means that when you log into a website, you'll enter your username and password just like you normally would.
Yep.
And then after they've verified who you are, they will prompt you to enter your two-factor authentication token, which is like a combination of numbers or letters that you can look up and then type that in. And that's another step in verifying that you are who you say you are. So this is separate from your password. And these things are set up to change every minute or something like that.
Yeah.
I think you get a
rolling 60 seconds.
Yeah. And now there's a couple tools for that too that Richie's going to go over to help you set up two-factor. Yep.
There's kind of 2 ways to do it. You can use an app, and there's a couple different apps. I personally like this one called Authy, Authy. I think it's owned by the same company as Twilio. Now that you guys would know what that is, but they are the back end for sending like a bunch of text messages and stuff from websites. So that's an app, and I like that it actually encrypts it and keeps it in the cloud and all that too, and goes across devices, which is really nice. The other one is called Google Authenticator, and it's probably by far the most popular one, probably because Google kind of pushes it out and whatnot. And that's just on one device. And basically the way you set these up is when you enable two-factor authentication on a website, it's going to pop up a QR code. It's one of those fuzzy barcode looking things, and you basically open up a Google Authenticator or Authy, and you point your phone at the screen, and it's going to interpret that, generate a code. And once you do that, the website's going to say, okay, enter the code that's on your screen, just to confirm that everything went okay, because it's doing math, the website's doing math, the phone's doing math, and wants to make sure everyone has the same code. Because if you lose this code, a lot of these websites will just straight lock you out, and they'll say, yeah, we can't recover it, because that's the whole point of it, is to make it ultra secure, even to the point that you can't get in. But that's why I use Authy, different devices. But a lot of them also have backup. So if you did lose that app, this is the second way. They will text message you to a cell phone that you've already pre-configured as you own. And actually, since you guys probably have Etsy shops, if you're listening to Etsy Jam, Etsy has two-factor authentication. And at the time we're recording this today, they use the text message SMS option. So they don't support the app option, but you put in your cell phone number, configure that, and they will text you I believe it's a 6-digit code. And so when you go in and once you have this set up, when you log in, you'll put in your email, your password, and then it'll text you a message right away. And the next screen, before it actually takes to your account on the computer, is going to be enter the code we just sent you. And that's two-factor. So even if someone got your email and password, they still can't get in unless they took your email, your password, and your phone.
So as more sites are rolling this out and it's available in more places where it wasn't before, how do you keep up on knowing which ones are offering it and which ones don't have it yet?
I think the website I follow the most is called twofactorauth.org. I think that's the one. There's a couple different websites, and actually, just to make sure that I'm up to date, I like to look that up and see a couple different lists. And I just go through them, and when I see a company I do business with, I like to go and make sure that I actually have that set up. I probably have something like 30 different codes set up right now, because any website that I have an account with that offers it, I'm setting it up. And the reason I look at these lists is because I come across websites on these lists where I'm like, wait a minute, I have an account there, but I never saw any option for two-factor. How the heck do I find this? And these websites these lists will often give you some instructions as far as if it's hard to find. They'll be like, okay, you've got to click this, and then it pops up. I don't know why some of these sites bury it. I think because just not a lot of people know about it, and maybe it's just an extra barrier for the normal person.
Yeah.
But it is really worth it, because all of these tips are really, they're about staying safe, and they're really about not making yourself a target, right? Like not making yourself an easy target.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. So like anything you can do. And one of these two-factor, once someone, if they get your credentials and they try it and they come to a two-factor screen, how much more time are they really going to spend? They're going to go to the next one who doesn't have two-factor.
Yep. Agreed. So admittedly, we're not doing this live right now. We did this in Blab like we normally do. We listened to it back and the quality was horrendous. And so we're actually re-recording this session right now.
Sure.
But one of the things that came up in the live session, we had some good Q&A going on there. And people were asking about tying in social media accounts and using those to authenticate with different websites, and whether or not that's a good practice to do and whether or not that's safe. And our answer to that was kind of, well, it depends. It depends on how the site that you're logging into actually implemented that second, that kind of OAuth, I think it's called usually. That other authentication by going through Twitter, Google, Facebook. You see those three a lot when you're logging into a service. Kind of depends on how they did that and if they're doing it securely and how it's set up. So it's not like a blanket answer for that. The one thing I would say is I typically don't use those. I typically create an account on websites, and that's just simply because, not for lack of trust or anything like that, but just that I can't remember if I used Facebook for a certain site or used Twitter or made an account there. And I don't want to end up with like multiple accounts on a website, because that'd just drive me nuts. It'd be super crazy, right?
I've done that. I've gone into Google one time, then clicked, maybe it was Facebook.
Yeah.
And instead of looking at the email address it has from the back end when it sees it, and merging, it's like, hey, it's the same one.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, welcome for the first time. No.
Yeah, wait, no, I've been here before.
Actually, I've seen some websites, and Zillow is actually one of these. So if anyone from Zillow is listening, I have definitely linked my email and password to either Facebook or Google. Actually, I can't remember. But I've linked it because I've done it several times. I've been like, oh, this looks easy. I will just log in with Google. And I go to do that, and it's like, hey, we see you already have an account with us. Yeah. So put in your email and password, and then we'll link them together. So you'll be set next time.
Nice.
Yeah, but I've done it like 10 times. And every single time it says, hey, just do this. So it doesn't work.
Yeah.
On that case. So OAuth.
Yes.
One question I can imagine people asking is, will the website see my password? So if I hit login with Google or login with Twitter or login with Facebook, will that website then have my password sitting there? Because that seems like I'd have the same password in both places. So is that how that works, or does it work somewhere different?
Again, it really depends on how people have implemented OAuth. I know if you're going to work with like Facebook and you're going to use Facebook's API to log people in, they actually have you load up an iframe or a separate window so that when people are creating an account or logging into your site, they're actually typing their information straight to Facebook. So it's never going to hit the other site servers or anything like that. They can't see your username or your password. It goes straight to Facebook. And then Facebook gives them a token that says, hey, this is like a legit user. You can use this token when you need to call back to us to get information about them. And that's the most secure way to do it. But again, it's really tough to say that every place that's doing it has implemented it that exact same way. Some APIs like Facebook lock this stuff down. So I don't even know that you really could log somebody in via Facebook. I mean, I guess you could if you collected username and password and then did some weirdness in the background. But I don't know why you would do that. It's probably honestly easier to set it up where Facebook handles all of that in the first place. But I suppose shady sites could make it look like you're logging in with Facebook, and then you're not. which reminds me about another thing I wanted to say about LastPass that I totally forgot about. And that is one of the things it helps with is that exact thing, right? So there's what's known as phishing emails and phishing sites out there. And it's called phishing because they're trying to lure you in as a consumer who received an email that said, hey, you know, $13,000 has been transferred out of your bank account. Like, thank you, right? Click here to view your receipt. And many people will click that link and say like, whoa, I didn't like transfer this money out of my, I don't know, Huntington account or whatever. And then they go to the Huntington website or what looks like the Huntington website and they enter their username and password to log in and see. Well, unbeknownst to them, what has really happened here is somebody has set up a fake Huntington website and they sent out a bunch of emails to people saying, hey, we transferred money, check it out. Everyone who has Huntington accounts is going to click that, go there, enter their credentials, and now they've just collected a bunch of usernames and passwords of Huntington users, which is terrible, right? And one of the things that LastPass helps with is it pre-fills usernames and passwords on sites that it recognizes. So in this situation, if I got an email that said that I transferred $13,000 and I mistakenly clicked the what is going on here link, and it took me to a page that looked just like Huntington, and I didn't happen to look up and see that it wasn't actually huntington.com, LastPass would not have pre-filled my username and password because it knows that's not Huntington's website. And so that little lapse right there, probably in the fact that I don't know my Huntington password and username, because I've created them in LastPass, would stop me and say, why isn't it pre-filling? Like, am I not logged into LastPass? Oh, I am logged in. Why is this not showing? You know what? I'm not at Huntington's website. That was really close. I almost entered my credentials.
You have to be really careful when you're looking at the URL bar because, I mean, they'll play with the characters in such a way that it looks like at a first and second glance it is the same website. In fact, you might even be thinking this and be like, you know, I wouldn't click that because, you know, I'm not dumb. I wouldn't click these. But the point of these emails is they make you not think because you get a believable email that looks like it's from your bank that this thing happened and you kind of go into panic mode pretty quick, right? You're not really thinking, oh, this seems shady. You're thinking, my money's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Get my money back.
Yeah. So you want to go to the bank and it's modeled to look exactly like the website, like you said. It looks the same. I mean, it could even be pixel perfect. You know, that's the whole point of their scam here. It's bad. And this stuff happens quick too. I mean, there's phishing there, but I remember telling you about, it was probably like 6 months ago or so. It was an account I didn't even know I had anymore. It was like an old one that I must have been before my LastPass day. It was like a MoneyGram account or something like that. And I got like 4 emails really quick, like rapid fire, crazy quick. My password had been changed and money had been sent to some random place in New York. I'm not in New York, nor am I sending any money to random places. And then it was picked up. It all happened within like a minute. So way quicker than I could even log in and find anything out. I didn't click anything in that email because I was worried it would be some sort of phishing thing. What I did was I made sure I went to the MoneyGram website and then I got their number. So I called them and talked to them. They were actually extremely unhelpful. Like totally unhelpful. I even filed a report and stuff and they never even contacted me. They didn't care. They're like, but the funny thing is, it wasn't my money that they sent. They apparently used like someone else's credit card or debit card to send money. And apparently once the money is picked up, like you're just out of luck. So if anyone ever did get into one of these accounts of yours, like if you have like a Western Union, MoneyGram, something like that, they must, I'm not sure how these scams work, but they must be like at the store on a device or something like that, because the moment the money's transferred, they're picking it up. And the reason they do that is they know that even the quickest people aren't that quick. And the moment they've got the cash in their hand, it's unbelievable. These places are just like, oh yeah, we wash our hands of it. Like they've picked up the money. We can do nothing for you.
Yeah.
And, what's your local police department going to do? They're not going to do anything either.
Yeah.
Because you can't trace these things down.
Yep.
So be safe.
Be safe. Is
that it?
I think so. Can you think of any other questions we had?
Emails. Somebody mentioned in the chat that they heard if somebody gets access to your email, then you can get yourself into a lot of online trouble. This is correct if they get access to your email account. Your email itself, if I just know your email, like that's not really, that's not a big deal. If it was, it wouldn't be on business cards and everything else, right? But if I have access to your email account, if I can get into your Gmail, then a lot of these websites, I can just go and hit forgot password. It'll email your account a link to reset the password, and I'm sitting there ready to receive it. And I'll probably just delete it so you never even see it.
Right.
And then I've got access to this account that you care about, and I'm going to do whatever I do, extract my value, bounce out of there, and pretend it never happened. Probably do something ideally that's under the radar so you don't even notice it for a while, if ever.
Yeah.
But it'll get you either way.
Yep, that's a good point. And it kind of goes back to, the benefits of using a secure password on your email account and two-factor authentication if your email provider offers that. I know Gmail does, and I definitely use it on mine. But
maybe if your email provider doesn't provide two-factor authentication, you shouldn't give out that email. Because then it might not be safe.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So if they don't put that on your business card.
That's a good point.
Yeah. For the accounts that matter, use an email that does have two-factor authentication.
Works.
Yeah. There we go.
There you have it.
And there we have it. What else? Open Wi-Fi connections. So hang out at the airport, coffee shop, the mall, stuff like that, right? Free Wi-Fi. This seems like a great idea. It is. Free Wi-Fi is great. But you should be careful because the people who basically control that gateway, as they call it, like control that connection, can basically save off the data you're sending back and forth. Now, like Gordon mentioned, actually, I don't think you mentioned it yet.
You knew I was going to mention it.
I knew he was going to mention it.
I probably mentioned it in the blab.
He might have mentioned it in the blab. When you're looking at the address bar on a website, there's a little green lock. I'm not sure if other Chrome has a little green lock. I'm not sure what other browsers have, but it basically means that all your traffic is encrypted, as we talked about, meaning it's it's saved off in such a way that without a key, without a digital key, you really can't see what's in it. It's all like just randomized crap that makes sense to nobody. Your connection is secure that way, right? But there's something called a certificate, which kind of lets the server see what's going on because the website from your computer to there needs to communicate and all that. Well, the person who owns these network connections can actually kind of manipulate that a little bit, right? So you gotta be careful, and you gotta make sure. There was definitely, what was it called, like sheep something or other? There was fire sheep.
Yeah, back in the day. That one was a little bit different. That was kind of because...
I was picking up people that weren't using it.
Yeah, back in the day, people would use that for authentication and make sure people are transmitting their usernames and passwords securely. But then once they did that, they were logging in and using a website without any kind of encryption, without any kind of protection of HTTPS or anything like that. And Firesheep allowed to hijack those sessions after someone had logged in and then kind of steal their access token, and you could act as them if they've already logged in.
Which, it's kind of a long way of getting there, but what I was going to say here is the point to prevent all of that is if you're on an open Wi-Fi connection, like not at home, something like that, right? And again, keep your Wi-Fi connections at home, like lockdown too. Don't go like without password and stuff like that. No reason to do that. Where's it going? You
were going to say that...
VPNs.
Yeah.
You should use something called a VPN. What it means is it's a virtual private network, but the details about it don't even matter. What really matters is that you use one and that it secures your connection from your computer to their server, regardless of what Wi-Fi connection you're in. You are, they call it tunneling, and you've got like a secure tunnel between that, and basically no one can really save off your data between there. Or pick things off that they're not supposed to pick off. And there's a lot of options. If you look up like VPN lists and stuff like that, you'll find all sorts of free and paid options. Have your pick. There's one called like HOLA, HOLA. There's private internet access. That's a paid one. There's a bunch of, mileage will vary. Of course, especially depending on where in the world you are and what your needs are, bandwidth wise and stuff like that. But there's a lot of different options.
The only thing I would say, too, with VPNs is you probably want to make sure you're reading reviews on other websites than just the VPN websites.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for like free VPNs, because while you are protecting your traffic from whatever open access point you're connected to, all of your traffic is now going through that VPN server. So some are more reliable than others. Some are more trustworthy than others. I would be much more comfortable if I have a nice one that has good reviews on other websites and I'm paying for it than if I found a free service that must be making somehow Wonder how they might be able to do that.
Yeah, agreed. They're not usually expensive either. I mean,
Yeah.
I think private internet access is what, like $35 a year?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Well worth it, for sure. Especially if you travel a lot, right? Because, like,
Oh, absolutely.
hotels, airports, all those places, coffee shops where they have the Wi-Fi access for you, you definitely want to encrypt that and lock that down as much as you can.
Absolutely. I mean, people don't even have to be in these places while they're taking your stuff. I mean, you could just leave a device behind. It's basically just
plugged
like,
into the wall. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's just waiting for somebody to leave something interesting going across the lines.
Yep. I think that's all we had. Did we have anything else?
I think that was it. Maybe even a little bit more.
And we did go through a little bit more, but that's all right. Extra tools and tips.
That is good.
So, with that, we will see you guys next week on Etsy Jam.
On episode 7.
Episode 7.
Hey, thanks for sticking around. Because you're still here, we've got an extra special bonus tool we want to share with you. Okay, actually, that's not entirely true. In the live blab, after we closed out the recording for the podcast, we got into talking about another tool that we totally forgot to mention inside of the podcast, but it was so awesome that we wanted to bring it up after the fact. So this is called Ssl Labs, and anyone who's familiar with using a website where that little green lock shows up next to the URL that you're visiting, you know that means your connection is secure. This website, sslabs.com, will allow you to score how well any site has implemented HTTPS and encryption on their domain. So if you go to sslabs.com and you select test your server, obviously it's not your server that you're testing, but it's testing somebody else's server. And you enter the host name that you want to test. So in this example, you could use marmalead.com. Hit submit. It'll take a little bit, but it will come back with a letter grade rating of how well that site has implemented HTTPS. And this is a good thing to do for different tools that you're using. And you might be curious about how well these sites have implemented HTTPS. And it's kind of a good indicator of how much attention they pay to security and how much they care about that. So another free little bonus tool for you. And I encourage you to go out there and check it out, run your banks through it, run Marmalead through it. Last I checked, we had a really good score, but we try to stay on top of that and make sure that we're ranked as high as we can for security. So go give it a shot, check it out, and stay safe.